What do you see Foxy D? After I came up with the title, I was tickled because it made me think of Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, which is a little kid's book about ABCs. And I thought to myself, yeah, Foxy D would appreciate that too. Foxy D is a very special lady. First time I met her, we were singing. I looked out into the audience, and there was one person sitting all by herself. When I say all by herself, I don't mean just that she was by herself. I mean there was a big space around her. And she was singing for all that was within her. There were times she was singing louder than our ladies were singing. She had the songbook in front of her, but it was closed. And when we finished singing, well, it was another one of those times when I had gout, so I was looking for a place to sit down. But while I'm paying attention, I notice everybody that goes up to her and talks to her for a bit, as soon as they start talking to her, she reaches out, grabs a hold of that hand, and she's holding on. And they'll be pleasant, and they'll talk, and as soon as she lets go, they're moving on. Next person walks up, starts talking to her, same kind of thing. And I realize I know what she needs. So after I put away the songbooks, I hobbled on over there, sat down beside her quietly. The person whose hand she was holding on to was Vicky's. That's my wife. And so as soon as she lets go of Vicky's hand, Vicky looks over, she smiles because she knows what's going to happen. And she goes, well, I got to go talk to another lady because this other person that was there we actually knew as well. And so, but my husband's going to talk to you next. And she's like, oh, really? Where is he? I'd like to meet a nice young man. And I said, well, I'm right next to you. And she jumps out of her skin almost because everybody else, of course, is coming at her from the front and above. I was sitting right next to her. Where did you come from? I came from right here next to you. Oh, and of course she reaches out and grabs, and I made sure my arm was sitting right there, ready and available, so that when she grabbed, there was something to grab. She grabs a hold of my arm. And we start talking. And I let her know I really appreciated her singing because she knew all the words. And she goes, well, I had lots of practice. And I said, oh, really? Oh, yeah. Back when I was in Gainesville, we used to sing. And I said, oh, really? Which congregation did you go to? Oh, I was part of Gainesville Church of Christ. Really? Were you there when Brother Don Dickerson? Oh, yeah, I remember Brother Don Dickerson. I remember Sister Gert. And we started talking and talking. She was there before we had been there briefly. It was a small congregation, sort of family congregation, meaning everybody in there was pretty much family. And we talked about the people we knew together. We only knew about 3 or 4 because she was there well before my time and I was there well after her time. And we talked about a lot of things. Foxy D is a poet. And the things she would tell you about, one of her favorite poems is The Animal Masquerade Ball. And she'll usually tell you about 3, if you're lucky, 4 poems in total. And that's when the cycle repeats. Foxy D's conversation lasts about 10 minutes. And then it starts all over again. Foxy D's been in that nursing home since probably the 1990s. And that was the last time anybody in her family probably visited, based on what you find out in that short little loop. But Foxy D is a special person. Foxy D was legally blind probably from the age of 9 on. She had one of those degenerative type of problems that by 9 was legally blind. She got to go to a special school when she was in Jacksonville. So she can sign her name. And I thought to myself, you can sign what you can't see. And those who can see what you can sign are going to sign back and you're not going to see it. But that's okay. Because the song we sang just now, don't think me poor or deserted or lonely. I'm not discouraged. I'm heaven bound. That's Foxy D. She's got the sunniest disposition you will ever encounter. She likes making jokes. So the second time that I was there, and of course every time I go there, I make sure I sit down next to Foxy D, and she always jumps out of her skin to find somebody sitting down next to her. And I'll say, "How are you doing, Foxy D?" And she goes, "Oh, who told you that?" I said, "Told me what?" "My name, Foxy D." "Oh, I can't believe anybody would ever tell you that." "Well, you told me that." "Oh, I'm blushing. I'm thinking to myself, nobody's going to see blush on you, and she knows that. She's a different person than you'll ever encounter. And she's a blessing to encounter. Because she's not what you expect. And today, I'd like to talk to you about somebody that you may have encountered before, but I'm going to talk to you about her in a way you wouldn't expect. Because unfortunately, a lot of times, what we see is what we expect to see. In John chapter 4, it's the story of the woman at the well. In verses about middle of 6 to 7, it was about the 6th hour, and there came a woman. Jumping down to 18, Jesus tells her, "You've had 5 husbands, and the one whom you have is not your husband." We read that first part and we think, oh, it's the heat of the day. She's going out in the heat of the day because she doesn't want to be seen by other people. Why? Because of what kind of woman she is. She's had 5 husbands, and the one she is with right now is not her husband. Well, I want to put a bit of societal spin on this. In that culture, 1 Timothy 2, verse 9. "Likewise, I want women to adorn themselves with proper clothing, modestly and discreetly, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly garments." When Paul's writing to Timothy about this, you might be surprised as to why he's writing this. Half of what he's writing about is how the women were dressing. The other half is to the men. In the society at that time, if a Jewish man said to his wife, "I divorce thee, I divorce thee, I divorce thee," it's over and done. Right then, right there. She doesn't get to go home and collect any of her personal belongings. She doesn't get to go home and collect any kind of money to get her by until what she had on her person at that moment was it. So, to make sure she was going to be covered, a woman would tend to wear all she could wear. She'd be wearing possibly 2 to 3 layers of clothing. That way she'd have clothes. She'd wear as much money as she could up in that hair, because what she could carry on her person was all she would have. Paul wasn't just writing in Timothy to let the women know this isn't the right way to be. Paul was also writing to the men. This isn't the right way to be. I'd like you to take some time. Let's go back to John. Think about a woman who's good at managing money, who's good at doing a profitable kind of business, whether that be doing laundry, sewing, seamstress, whatever. We know that a good wife, talking about Old Testament wives, was praised, worth more than her weight in gold, for the things she was capable of doing. Or even jump into the New Testament. The women that traveled with Jesus and the disciples were the ones funding that ministry. A woman who was worth her weight in gold might still not be pretty. It might be advantageous to marry such a person to get your household in order. To get it so that I got a nicer house now. I don't sweat whether or not I can afford the next meal because she's got it all organized. And now that it's all good, whoa, that one looks better. I divorced the, see ya. And upgrade. And the next man comes along. Well, yeah, I can't really afford a wife because I am not too good at managing my money. And well, okay, I'll marry you. And marries her again. Whoa, my life's in order. Fact is, I got money in the bank. I divorced the, because that looks good. It's really easy to say it was all her fault when we know how bad our society can be at times, how shallow we can be at times. And before you think, Rich, you're just making something out of nothing, think about this situation. Jesus is there. He's talked to her. He's told her stuff that in one respect you might say was embarrassing to her, but she still listened, heard him for what he was saying, and at the end of it, 28 and 29, so the woman left her water pot, went into the city, and said to the men, "Come, see a man who told me all the things I have done. This is not the Christ, is it?" If she was the woman of questionable moral structure, how many men in this congregation want to be seen with her in the middle of the day, running up and saying, "Hey, I've seen somebody. You want to go off and see him with me?" "I'm sorry, I've got a wife. We are in a happy situation, and I so don't want to be seen with you because you represent." What was the response? Was the response, "Boo, that's not the woman I want to be seen with"? Because think about what she said. "Isn't this the Christ?" She goes up to the men in the city saying, "Come and see. I think I found the right one." Let's jump back a bit. Before that, when she's talking to Jesus, the woman says to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, and he who is called Christ, when that one comes, he will declare all things to us." This isn't just somebody spouting off. This is somebody who knows the Messiah is coming. And when he comes, he's going to let us know the things we need to know. A woman who's trying to avoid being good because she gets so much from being bad isn't going to be the woman telling anybody about the Messiah. Isn't going to be the woman who knows about the Messiah. But the woman who's trying to do everything she can to show she's a wife worth keeping, who's even willing to go out in the heat of the day Possibly just to make him happy because I want some cold water. Okay, I'll go get it. Is able to hold a conversation with Jesus and talk about, well, you Jews believe the place to worship is, and we believe. How's somebody supposed to know? The Jewish scripture, back that up. The Samaritan scripture consisted only of the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. That's it. Yet, from the first 5 books, she knew Messiah was coming. Because it's in the first 5 books that God makes the promise to Abraham. Through your seed, all nations of the world will be blessed. Guess what? Samaritans were part of that blessing. The Samaritans were looking for that fulfillment just like the Jews were. Not in the same way, but they were looking. She knew it. And when I say she knew it, I mean she knew the scripture enough to know a Messiah is coming. She was looking for it. So that when he comes, he's told me all these things. Hello? Right here. This guy. Come out and see him. He's the Messiah. And they came. They heard her, they listened, and they responded. Sometimes it's not just the things that are right in front of us that we might miss. Sometimes we miss what we really need to see. This is a passage that gets used an awful lot. John 4:23 through 24. But an hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For such people, the Father seeks to be his worshipers. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. And he's saying that to a Samaritan. He's not giving this deeper truth to the Jews. Think about that. He's in a discussion, and it's a Samaritan woman he's telling. It's not about the where. It's not really about the how that you all have been focusing on way too much on both sides. It's about God. And those that are true worshipers of God are going to seek to worship him in spirit and in truth. And that's the kind of worshiper God is seeking. Set aside everything you know about this woman. She sought the Messiah. So much so that when she found him, she goes and tells others, look what I think I've found. Jesus didn't accident into Samaria. Jesus was there because he's telling the truth here. God seeks those type of worshipers. And he found them in Samaria. True worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. You know, that's an easy kind of thing to say. But do we really get it? And I say that because on my ride in this morning, I saw it on a sign. Come on in because we have spirit-filled worship. I'm thinking to myself, how in the world can you say that? Oh, well, we got a guy up front who's just as obnoxious as Rich Kelley is. And we've got a song leader who sings really energetically and blah, blah, blah. I don't make it a spirit-filled worship service. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. The song leader and what songs he chooses doesn't make it spirit-filled. What's in here, and by that I mean in every heart in this building, is what determines whether or not it's spirit-filled or not. Because no matter how animated I am, how invigorating my message is, whatever you want to put on that, that doesn't determine, are you here to worship God in spirit and in truth? I mean, beyond just the trying to get it all right, are you here because you can't help but be here? Or are you here because, well, it's Sunday morning, this is where I have to be, because I'm supposed to be here? As Boone said, that was good. As Boone has said, do you know why you're here? She wasn't responding out of any sense of duty to a Jew because she was a Samaritan. She was responding because she found truth in a way she couldn't deny. She was responding because that was what was really in her heart. Was to respond when, in spite of what sounds almost like an insult, you've had 5 husbands and the man you're with now isn't one. That didn't get in the way of the truth. Her condition didn't stop her from responding the way she should have. When the apostles came, Jesus said to them, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me and to accomplish his work." The apostles find him talking to a woman in the middle of the day. Jewish culture? No, you don't do that. You don't even talk to your wife in public because that's just not the thing we do. Sort of crazy. So what is he doing talking to a woman that's not his wife? This is a Samaritan. Hey, we got food. You can forget this stuff now. We got food. We're good. My purpose in being here isn't the food. My purpose in being here isn't the stuff you think is important. I've been taking care of what's really important while you guys were off getting food. He's not putting them down, but he's letting them know, that's okay, I'm good. Because what needed to happen here is already taking place. And when I got the time to deal with the food, I'll deal with the food. But right now, more important things are going down. True worshipers will worship in spirit and truth. Think about where Jesus was at that moment. He wasn't thinking about how hot it was. I don't even know if she bothered to get him the drink of water he asked for at the beginning. And I don't think he cared. He wasn't worrying about the meal. Because what was most important to Jesus was the soul he was talking to at that time. A soul that even when he says the negative, still responds back, looking for the right answer to what it's all about. And when she finds the one who's able to tell her what it's really all about, he's happy about it. I've got what I need. The Samaritan woman responded to the Messiah. She responded to what she knew was needed. Not just by her, That's the cool thing. She realized this is bigger than me, and it's more than me that needs to hear this. The real question then for us is, how are we responding to that Messiah? Because the woman at the well, who came out in the heat of the day, who gets told by a Jew, cats and dogs situation there, you've had 5 husbands and the man you're with right now isn't so. She does the right thing. She responds, are we seeking like Jesus to accomplish his work, meaning the Father's? Or are we too busy with what's right there in front of us that we can't get past? I mean, for some people at that time, the fact that she was Samaritan, that's okay, I'll go to the other side of the well and I'll see if I can find an accidental cup left around, because I'm so not being seen by her, with her. Or thinking a little bit beyond she's a Samaritan. Oh, she's out here in the middle of the day. Okay, yeah. This is not the lady I want to be seen with. That's not what it's all about. It's about looking past that outward. Or when we read the word worship, do we think in our minds, oh, Sunday, Wednesday, I got it covered, I'm good. Worship isn't just a Sunday, Wednesday thing. Being obedient to God isn't a Sunday, Wednesday thing. Seeking to accomplish his objectives isn't a Sunday, Wednesday thing. But yes, seeking to accomplish his objectives, that is a worship thing. It's almost take that back. I was about to say it's almost a 24/7 thing. It is a 24/7 thing. It's a God thing. And he's worthy of it. When we're in Publix, and it's the person in the line next to us, are we showing God in how we act? Or are we showing, I'm so sorry, that's more than 10 items. You really need to go someplace else so I can get up there. And I'm smiling about it. And there have been days I've felt like that. Or are we treating them better? Because that's the best opportunity we have to be reaching them, is by treating them better in spite of how it looks on the outside. Foxy D's blind. Foxy D is in a wheelchair. She is singing and smiling with all her heart. And every person that you will talk to about Foxy D will tell you the same thing. She's a lovely lady. Awesome, awesome attitude. A joy to work with. Blind since she was probably younger than 9 years old. And she's in her late 80s now. Still smiling. Still singing. No one in this world is not my home. The Samaritan woman was in a place in her life past 5 husbands. She went and brought people to the Messiah. Because bigger than the mess up in her life was what she found. And what she found demanded a response. And I don't mean that in the have to way. I mean that in the can't help but do way. When God looks at me, what does he see? Does he see somebody who's comfortable with where they are in life? Sitting back, I show up, I give. Isn't that good? Tell that to your husband or wife. Hey, I come home. I make sure we got enough to eat. Isn't that good? No. We get it when it's husband and wife. Do we get it the way Foxy D gets it? If it's so obvious Foxy D can get it, what about you and me? Jesus came to accomplish the work of the Father. Accomplish it in us. We need to be seeking to do the same. Accomplish the work of the Father. That's a doing kind of thing. That doing begins with taking his son on in baptism, but it doesn't end there. It starts there. We need to be striving daily to let that love show in as many ways as possible. Because one day, it might be us that's in that wheelchair. The time to act is now. The time to show God's love in a meaningful way to a lost and dying world is now. If you need to take his son on in baptism or you need the prayers of the church, you're more than welcome to come as we stand.